Hey guys, that's Admirable here. This is a game I played on June 23rd of 2016. It's decided to try out Dragon Warrior for the day. I had some pretty recent losses against it on the ladder I was playing, and I saw EdwardElric, who made the finals of the Asia Pacific Hearthstone Championships for spring, play this deck as well, and it actually looked pretty powerful to me, so I decided I would give it a try. And this is a game that had a lot of examples about things I'm usually asked about in terms of how to identify game plans, transitioning from sort of your initial strategy into an alternative one, and how to get the most value out of your cards, and sort of forcing plays from your opponent. It's something I talk about a lot during broadcasts, and I talk about a lot during my stream, but it's very rarely something that you can just really describe as a general aspect. You kind of need examples to walk your way through it. And so this game kind of had a lot of examples of it. And so it's the one I wanted to highlight specifically for this one. Ended up climbing from about 1300 legend to where I am right now, playing Dragon Warrior, when I queued into Sullivan, who is an unknown player to me. I don't know anything about my opponent at the moment. He's just playing Warrior. And what I've seen from Warriors recently is lots of Dragon Warrior. Now, there's also the Tempo Warriors, Cthulhu Warriors, Standard Control Warriors. There's a lot of different archetypes of Warrior right now. And so it's particularly difficult to play against. And one of the reasons I think Dragon Warrior is so powerful is because it takes a more aggressive stance versus most of your opponents. And so because of that, you can usually get a better idea here. So it's in terms of mulligans, against a Warrior matchup in particular, definitely looking for Alex Strauss's champion, Fairy Dragon, Farthing Berserker, Fiery War Axe, and Twilight Guardian. If you have Fiery War Axe, Ravaging Ghoul goes way up in value because of the way it contests against Farthing Berserker in particular, in combination with the Fiery War Axe, being able to attack it and then play Ravaging Ghoul, you get a 3/3 on board. And when I have the coin, I also contemplate keeping Kor'kron Elite, because of when your opponent plays turn 3 Frothing Berserker, you can coin Kor'kron Elite, attack it, and leave yourself with a 4/1 afterwards, which is a very powerful play because Frothing Berserker is just so strong. So here, deciding to lead with Alex Strauss's champion. He didn't play Fiery War Axe on turn 2, so his turn 3 plays are typically just going to be a little bit weaker in my opinion, or maybe you're just a minion. And so I go with Alex Strauss's champion, intending to combine it with something. We run into Fiery War Axe, and we kind of get stuck into this really awkward position where I'm not really sure what's going on. So this is really the first position where we have any information about what he was doing. And before, I assumed it was just kind of a standard Control Warrior build. When I see the Disciple of Cthulhu, we now have to identify what the actual game is going to pan out like. So my opponent has a gain 10 armor 6/6. They have the Inevitability of Cthulhu, and they have lots of minions to fight for. Now, Dragon Warrior happens to do a pretty good job of fighting the mid-sized minions with, obviously, the Blackwing Corruptors I have in hand, having Ravaging Ghouls, having Slam for this Divine Shield, things of that nature. There's a lot of stuff going on in this matchup that makes it pretty easy to fight the actual minion battle. The problem is, at some point, you have to make a transition and pressure your opponent. And that's sort of the difficult task that we're searching for, is a way to pressure our opponent in this game. So right away when I see this, that's what I have to think about, is how do I develop? How do I get repetitive damage out of that? How do I force my opponent's removal spells so that it opens the way for Malkarok, Ragnaros, and Grommash Hellscream? Those are the major concerns. And big way we're going to do that is, or try to do that anyway, is with Draconid Crusher. But Pressure in general is going to be a good substitute. So Frothing Berserker is the draw. And initially the play was going to be attack with Fiery War Axe, coin into Blackwing Corruptor. But drawing the Frothing Berserker means that we can actually lead into the Blackwing Corruptors versus cards like Ravaging Ghoul and Disciple of Cthulhu. So rather than play the Blackwing Corruptor here, the Frothing Berserker not only is probably a more significant threat than Blackwing Corruptor, but it's also got less situational value, where the Blackwing Corruptor can kill 3/3s from our opponent. The Frothing Berserker can only attack, and so this is really where the game starts to become favorable for us. And then we run into Harrison Jones. So Harrison Jones throws a wrench in all of these plans. We have no way to contest Harrison right now, and we draw Ravaging Ghoul. So normally in this spot, you look at it and you go, oh, pretty easy. Play Twilight Guardian, play Sir Finley. Well, I don't have a dragon in hand, so I can't play Twilight Guardian. That's off the table. If I choose the Blackwing Corruptor, we now have a 5/1 versus our 4/4 Frothing Berserker and our 5/4 Blackwing Corruptor. So that plays off the table as far as I'm concerned. The only real thing I can see here is play Sir Finley and evaluate. And if I play Sir Finley, there's not really any way to contest the Harrison Jones. So at this point, I'm thinking this is probably the turn where I have to apply the most pressure to my opponent that I can and hope that we can snowball that damage because we already have Grom in hand and we have both the Blackwing Corruptors. And so this is a difficult call to make. I mean, in this turn, I really didn't want to pull the trigger on this because I have such a good hand that can fight. But the Harrison Jones kind of illustrating how powerful this card really is. If this was basically any other minion, we didn't have to take an aggressive stance here. But this is the point in the game where it's absolutely necessary to identify that win condition and follow through on that. It's going to give us our best chance to win, in my opinion. So go with the Sir Finley. Hero powers, this is often a big thing too. And so I just talked about how damage is going to be potentially our win condition here. But we still have a chance to take advantage of the card scenario in terms of card economy, board presence, and what it surmounts to thereafter. So life tap looks pretty appealing here to me, simply because I do want to draw another dragon, and finding Execute's probably going to be pretty paramount to winning this game. Steady Shot does provide us a lot of damage here, but I probably need stuff that's making more of an impact. Because if our assault fails, we need to have some sort of fallback plan, and that's what life tap provides for us. And so again, pretty difficult to pull the trigger, and I can't play the Twilight Guardian here, even though I really want to, because even the 2/6 body I think is pretty good on this board, and then following up with Ravaging Ghoul. But given that we have the life tap, given that we've got both Blackwing Corruptors, I just think that Ravaging Ghoul and push for damage is going to be our best bet. It's going to put him in an uncomfortable spot. We're going to force trades from him. We're going to force him either to take damage or use cards from hand. And when he uses stuff from hand, like Execute, Shield Slam, etc., that's when we can use the Blackwing Corruptors to swing that board back and try to lead into a Grom. Because if we force enough removal, Grom might actually hit him twice. So that's why we go face. Trading here is bad, because if he has stuff like Execute or Shield Slam to tempo us, we don't have a problem with that because we have return tempo in our hand with the Blackwing Corruptors. So that's the entire goal of this. And now my opponent is forced to a decision. From the onset, it looks like he's going to be using something from hand to deal with Frothing Berserker, answering the Ravaging Ghoul with the 3/3, and then moving forward. So a lot of his development gets cut into here with the shield block. It's a very key thing to note, is that he's not playing a minion this turn. Forced an Execute with a Frothing Berserker that's now already dealt 6 damage. A fantastic trade for us. And here, he chooses not to value trade with the Harrison, which I think is actually smart. This is something a lot of players don't do very often, is not value trade. It's a very easy value trade for him, but Execute's already active on Harrison Jones. It's already vulnerable to Blackwing Corruptor, and it only represents 1 point of damage. And we just got the life tap. If we didn't have life tap, probably value trade. But since we have the life tap, it's much easier for him to put that 5 pressure into our face and cut off 2 of our potential life taps in the future. This is a very good play by him to actually attack face here instead of trading with the minion. So Blackwing Corruptor answers. We go face for 1, and our goal is to continue to snowball this turn after turn and leveraging the hero power for the rest of this game to make sure that we have the resources to continue to swing this board over and over again. Now, his Cthulhu is only 8 at this point, so Twin Emperor is off the table for him. He cannot gain 10 armor with Ancient Shield Bearer, so he's got to figure out a way to start answering this board. And this is kind of what I'm talking about with forcing answers. It's kind of the power that Blackwing Corruptor provides, is that a 5/4 body is still sizable. So Vanus hits play, and we don't have much of an option here. To me, this just looks like a 5/5 taunt minion, or I'm sorry, rather a 5/6 taunt minion in this spot. It's kind of awkward. I'm not really happy about it, but it is what it is. And so this is where things get even trickier, is I have to decide where I want to use my minions at this point. And so very interesting option is to play Frothing Berserker and try to build on it afterwards, because we want to get that Blackwing Corruptor value. Now the problem with this is that if we don't shred his armor, he's got a very easy armor up Shield Slam, maybe plays another Cthulhu minion. We're kind of left in the water because Blackwing Corruptor doesn't line up very well versus Cthulhu's Chosen. I obviously don't want to hit a Disciple of Cthulhu with 3 extra damage. A lot of things are kind of going wrong here. And so, since I made the judgment of attacking him with that Frothing Berserker, I feel like I have to follow through on this. And so Blackwing Corruptor is not only going to shred the armor to make a Shield Slam difficult here, because we've already seen 1 shield block from him, but it's also going to get a 5/4 on board, and that 5/4 is going to threaten to activate Draconid Crusher, which he's very aware is in the build. Even though we don't have it in our hand, from his perspective, he doesn't know that. And so having that threat there means that he has to respond to this in some way. And when your opponent's consistently using resources and you have life tap, it's easy to eventually, or not easy, but it's pretty likely that you eventually get an unchecked card on the board versus it. And so he goes with Justicar Trueheart, and he has Tank up to follow. And so Malkarok is a beautiful draw in this spot. The only thing we get punished by is Curse Blade. Even the 1-power weapons I think are fine at this point. We could be more than willing to tank 6. We end up getting a 3-power blade instead, which preserves Execute. It preserves Blood to Ichor. We connect for 5, and now we have 11 power on board. And this is what I meant with scaling and forcing answers from my opponent, and then getting to these turns where we can push through Malkarok and we can push through Grommash. He's already used an Execute. He's used a Fiery War Axe. Harrison Jones is down. We have the Ravaging Ghoul checked with the weapon from Malkarok. This is a second Execute we get at this point. And then he has to tank up and Shield Slam. So now he's only got 1 Shield Slam left, and he's only got 4 armor. And so we have a wealth of resources at our disposal. We're not fearing the damage at all, as Cthulhu's still very small. Grom is sometimes not found in the Cthulhu builds, or rather, a lot of times not found in the Cthulhu builds, and we pick up a dragon off the life tap. Now he's in the exact same situation he was in a few turns ago. Sure, we only have 8 life, but his goal is to stay alive. And that life tap could still potentially draw us another card after this. We have Azure Drake in hand, Grommash is here, we have Execute for tempo, and we still have lots of strong cards left. Draconid Crusher's looking very good here. The Ragnaros looks beautiful. He plays this Doomcaller sort of in desperation at this point. And then we draw Ragnaros. So I want to talk about the Doomcaller here for a second. This is an illustration of how desperate my opponent is to fight for the board position. We have forced all of the removal. He has no adequate play. He has to play a 7-9 and hope that we don't have an answer to this. And this was all because we forced the issue to our opponent. A lot of players tend to play very conservatively with cards that will answer their opponent's stuff. Sometimes you should, but in this instance, the Blackwing Corruptors were simply threats that forced action from our opponent as catalysts to these kinds of turns. So Ragnaros, perfect draw. I mean, this play spells out itself after we draw Ragnaros. We still have Slam to activate on the Grom. It's just an easy Blood to Ichor Execute, drop the Ragnaros. 15 damage being pushed this turn now. I'm sorry, 14 damage. Is it? No, it's 15 damage being pushed. 8 plus a 7. So this drops him down into Draconid Crusher range. This is a situation where he literally has to have Brawl or he's going to lose the game. And so we've already got that one benefit going for us, that if our opponent does not have Grommash Hellscream, the game has ended and we have won. So that is a major benefit that we have going. And I mean, the desperation is very clear to our opponent at this point. And you're going to see even more of that. So Acolyte of Pain and couple it with the Brawl. The Acolyte has almost no value. We've cut into the rest of his development this turn. As far as I'm concerned, this is a 20% chance for him to stay alive in this one. Even if we get the 2-2, it's really not the worst situation in the world. And so, once again, window of opportunity here. Grom plus the Slam will put him down to 1. He's already used a Brawl. He's got 1 copy of Shield Slam left, and he has to couple it with Ancient Shield Bearer to make something happen here. We didn't see that last turn. He probably doesn't have it this turn. Put that pressure down and go for your opponent. Our 8 life total looks like 1,000,000 right now because we're not the ones who have to worry about dying. It's all about our opponent that has to worry about it, simply because of the pressure we've applied. So the transition for this game, from mid-game to this stage, through the Malkarok, through the Rag and Grom, all of these cards played into each other one after another, and it's because of the pressure. That's something that's very paramount that you need to remember. Every single card in your deck has a purpose, and a lot of times they have multiple purposes. And these are definitely purposes of them. Slam, pure desperation at this point. He's almost got no chance to recover from this spot. I can't imagine a sequence of cards that gets him back into this game. Opponent scoops it up, doesn't have the Ancient Shield Bearer Shield Slam, and of course not. He's only got 1 Shield Slam left. We forced all of them. And so that's going to be the review from today on this game. And I want to thank you all for joining me. Please let me know what you thought of the commentary, if you want to see more of these style videos, or if you want to see more of highlight videos. I personally have grown very fond of the post-thought analysis, where I get to really delve into all the things I've learned from years and years and years of playing cards. I've been playing cards for 2 decades at this point. That is my cell phone. Ignore that. I'm not going to do a second take or edit that out. And let me know what you guys thought of it. Really like this style of format, and I hope you guys are enjoying it more. If you want to see games live, twitch.tv/that'sadmirable, 12 to 6 p.m. Pacific time, Monday through Friday, unless I'm traveling for an event, be it for casting, competing, or anything else. I want to thank you all for joining me today. Check out the rest of the videos here. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video for more content of this nature. And as always, that's admirable. Don't forget to tell me your feedback.